Will the House come to order? Mr. Clerk.
Aloha and good afternoon. Today's invocation will be delivered by Representative Della Ao-Beladi. Will the members who wish to participate please rise?
Please remain seated. I'd like to start my invocation today by thanking Majority Floor Leader for her words yesterday, hearkening back to speeches made on this very floor 18 years ago. Reflecting on that time and all the changes that this body has seen, from the changes that we have seen in society at large, changes in technology and communications, the large shifts in public opinion, the generations of lawmakers who have come and gone and remain. I am also struck by the continuity of traditions, practices, and the institution that we live and work in. That's the dichotomy we live in, the tides and currents in which we navigate, change and continuity. I have also been thinking a lot about the rules and norms that govern our behaviors, and how these two have both persisted and changed over time. So as a lawyer, I have been trained to always think in terms of orders of authorities. How I translate that to what governs our behaviors is that the constitutions, both the United States and Hawaii state constitutions, are our North Stars, the first order of authority. Our second order of authority is our adopted rules, which we have the great responsibility to craft, and which also incorporates Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure, the 2020 edition to be exact. Next, Masons instructs us to look to custom, usage, and precedents, or past practices, as the third source or order of authority as to how we should govern and conduct our business in this chamber. Now, there are a few more authorities, but I really wanted to focus on this notion of precedents, or past practices. Past practice can actually be created by new ways and new things we do in any given session. In this session alone, we are doing things that are setting new practices in place. Past practices can also be lost in the blink of an eye. I think about this very practice of invocation. Just right before the closing of the legislature in the 2020 session, it was the practice of this House to either have individual lawmakers give the invocation, or we could invite someone, including members of the community, provide the invocation for us. I frankly appreciated this option because, no offense to anyone here, it was incredible to see the diversity of our communities. I share this with you because I think we have to pay attention to all of these things. And I will go back to one of the words that was said on this floor 18 years ago, that I hoped that we would act based on the principles of compromise, fairness, and respect. Another speaker on that day said, "We all come here with hopes and dreams to do great things, solve real problems." I've meandered about, but I wanted to share these thoughts with you so that as we head into conference, you think of all of these things, all of these orders of authorities, past practices, our rules, Masons, and those values that you bring with you so that we can all move forward and solve the problems of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bellotti. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayu, Mr. Alcos, Ms. Amato, Ms. Bellotti, Mr. Chun, Ms. Cochran, Mr. Evslin, Mr. Ganadin, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Garrett, Mr. Gates, Mr. Hashem, Mr. Holt, Ms. Hussey Burdick, Ms. Ichiyama, Mr. Iligan, Ms. Kahaloa, Ms. Capella, Mr. Kila, Ms. Kitagawa, Mr. Kobayashi, Mr. Kong, Ms. Lachika, Ms. Lamosao, Ms. Lowen, Ms. Martin, Ms. Martinez, Mr. Matayoshi, Ms. Matsumoto, Mr. Miyake, Ms. Mizuno, Ms. Morikawa, Ms. Nakamura, Mr. Nakashima, Mr. Nishimoto, Mr. Onishi, Ms. Peruso, Mr. Perrick, Ms. Poepoe, Mr. Quinlan, Mr. Sayama, Ms. Souza,
Excused.
Mr. Takayama, Ms. Takenouchi, Mr. Tam, Mr. Tarnas, Mr. Todd, Mr. Ward, Mr. Woodson, Mr. Yamashita, Mr. Speaker.
Present.
Mr. Speaker, 50 members are present, one is excused.
Item 2, reading of the journal. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, may this matter be deferred.
So ordered. Item 3, Mr. Clerk, are there any messages from the governor?
Mr. Speaker, there are none.
Item 4, Mr. Clerk, are there any Senate communications?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, if you and the members will turn your attention to the addendum to today's order of the day. We are in receipt of a communication informing the House that the Senate has disagreed to the amendments proposed by the House to the noted Senate bills. We are also in receipt of communications transmitting the noted Senate concurrent resolutions, all having been adopted in the Senate. We are in further receipt of communications returning the noted House bills, all having passed third reading in the Senate.
All right, for the disagree motion, Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to disagree to the amendments made by the Senate to the noted House bills.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Any discussion, members? If not, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Members, are there any introductions? Representative Ilagan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to introduce you to one of my staff member, Ariel Hall, that's over at the gallery. And next to her is my office manager's friend, Manya Tam, who might be related to the representative in Waikiki. And please, welcome to your House of Representatives.
Okay, members, on item 5, Representative Morikawa for the motion to suspend the rules.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules of the House in order to consider certain Senate bills for third reading by consent calendar.
Representative Garcia.
Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 1629-24 through 1633-24 as listed on pages 1 and 2, and that the accompanying Senate bills as amended pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, members, discussion, SCR 1629. Next page, 1630, 1631, 1632. Representative Purick.
No vote.
So ordered. Members on no votes without a floor speech, you may submit a slip to your caucus leader. Okay, 1632, 1633. Representative Ward,
Speaker, I rise in opposition.
please proceed.
I should say strong opposition with some strong reservations. Contradictory, but because if I was a neighbor island representative, I would say spot on, this is good. If I was North Shore, it sounds good. But for those of us who live in urban Honolulu, urban neighborhoods, jaywalking is a bad policy, Mr. Speaker. The only value I see that comes out of this are probably funeral homes and the EMS and other people who benefit from people getting injured. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, as we failed to pass it last year, I hope so the same as this year. Bad policy. Thank you.
Further discussion, members? Representative Chun.
Reservations.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Further discussion, Representative La Chica.
Reservations.
So ordered. Okay, we'll take the vote. Representative Poi Poi.
Reservations.
So ordered.
Same request.
Representative Gates. So ordered. Further discussion, Representative Ganadin.
In support, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
I'll try to be brief. The Department of Health actually testified in this, in what I thought was a criminal justice bill. I'm going to read just a brief portion. Despite Hawaii's favorable climate, geography, and reputation for active outdoor living, only 24.8% of Hawaii residents meet federal guidelines for physical activity. They go on to say, jaywalking laws are ineffective at producing roadway safety results, but also accentuate places which are hostile to walking. Removing jaywalking penalties has not been found to increase adverse public safety outcomes. Initial data from localities where decriminalization jaywalking was implemented show that there has been little to no change in the number of traffic injuries and fatalities. In addition, cities with the lowest traffic death rates do not have jaywalking laws. I think that I'm hoping members consider some of the places where we like to go visit and vacation, some of the finest cities in the world, and the way they use their roads. I think we should free our minds from the shackles of American normativity regarding roads and know that roads are for everybody and that they're meant to be free. How's the song go? Like this ain't Texas? I don't want Hawaii to be one of the places in America where we just keep building more roads and keep dedicating ourselves to further lanes and unnecessary vehicular traffic. Yeah, I think we should all just be able to go for a walk.
Representative Alcos,
Oppose.
please proceed.
We build streets to make our kids safe, our families safe. Many crosswalks we invested in. And in our districts, we see people still getting banged or getting hurt, even with the crossroad. And all the monies that we invest to, this is about keeping our family safe. I understand that other countries don't have that, but this is a good idea that we make a stop sign or a crossway or some place be safe for our kids, our families, and even for drivers, and be aware of who's crossing the road, where's that main intersection at. This is going backwards to me. I feel that safety should be our number one concern to save our family's life, and therefore I'm against this bill. Thank you.
So further, Representative Kong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to correct the representative from Hawaii because...
In support or opposition?
Oh, in opposition.
Please proceed.
Because Maui would not appreciate this bill. It is very street specific in the code. But as far as Oahu is concerned, it's interesting to note that we can jaywalk in a residential area as long as we're 200 feet from a crosswalk or intersection. But it is not allowable to jaywalk in a business district or where there's high traffic volume. So that's the problem. This bill only addresses the high traffic volume and business district because you can actually jaywalk in the residential. So we have to make a decision. Is it safe to cross the street? In Jesus, thank you.
Representative Capello,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In strong support.
please proceed.
First, I'd like to adopt the words of the representative from Kalihi as if they're my own.
So ordered.
Second, I would just like to make mention that my district is 108 miles long, and within my entire district, I don't have a single sidewalk, and I have very few crosswalks. It is about safety, and we want to make sure that, I think first off, we should be putting more money, more equitable money towards communities that don't have access to some of these most basic things like sidewalks and crosswalks. And then second, I think we also need to ensure that if we don't have access to those things, we need to make sure that we're not ticketing those community members because they don't have a crosswalk that was provided to them in order to cross. Thank you.
Representative Kong, second time.
Second time opposition. On the Big Island and Kauai, it is permissible to jaywalk. There is no ordinance. It all comes from your city traffic codes listed within each district or each county. Thank you.
Can we take the Representative Ward, second time?
Second time, Mr. Speaker. I want to withdraw the comment about Maui, given the gentleman saying that Maui is not for this kind of a situation. But I would suggest this, Mr. Speaker, if we could hone this down and refine it to be applicable to any county less than 500,000, I think it would make a lot of sense. Again, as I said earlier, if I was on the Big Island, I would say this is spot on. But let me speak from my constituency in Hawaii Kai. Kalama Valley, since its beginning with Henry Kaiser, has never had one crosswalk. And right now, they're jaywalking from the Kalama Valley Park, District Park, to get into their mother and father's cars across the street. We don't have a way of doing that, and they're jaywalking, and they are frightened about their kids getting killed. The analogy is Hanauma Bay is the most beautiful place to snorkel, but it's the most dangerous place for drowning, and those are the numbers. The point is, Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that sounds intuitively fun, but in terms of actuality, it could point to a lot of dangers. And why do we want to jeopardize the citizens and the people of Hawaii? When we get to the marijuana bill, I'll say the same thing. Why do we want to jeopardize the people by saying go ahead and do this without precaution. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, this belongs in an urban area, maybe not in the neighbor islands, but if there's not a bill that is amended to that effect, I think everybody should vote no on this. Thank you.
Representative Perrick.
No vote.
So ordered. Okay, members, can we take the vote? Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 2, Stancom report number 1633-24, SB number 2630, SD1 HD2, the following vote no. Ayu, Garrett, Holt, Kila, Kong, Lamasao, Matayoshi, Miyake, Sayama, Tam.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 2, SCR 1632-24, SB 2657, SD1 HD2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, Perrick, vote no. SCR 1633-24, SB 2630, SD1 HD2, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, Perrick, and Ward vote no.
Right, members, have all votes been cast on these measures? Okay, if so said measures pass third reading. Item 6, Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 1780-24 through 1784-24 as listed on pages 3 and 4, and that the accompanying Senate bills as amended pass second reading and be placed on the calendar for third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, discussion, members. SCR 1780, 1781. Representative Amato.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Poi Poi.
No vote.
Okay, so ordered. Representative Pruso.
Same request.
So ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Reservation.
So ordered. Representative Capella.
No vote.
So ordered. Representative Bellotti.
Thank you, with reservations.
So ordered. For this, Representative Ganadin.
No vote.
So ordered. Further discussion on 1781, 1782, 1783. Representative Perrick.
No vote.
Representative Ward.
With reservation.
So ordered. Representative Kila.
On 1783, reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Garrett.
Thank you. Same request, please.
So ordered. Representative Poi Poi.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Tam.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Ayu.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Lamasao.
Same request. Thank you.
So ordered. Representative Garcia.
No vote.
So ordered. Representative Alcos.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Amato.
No vote.
So ordered. For Representative Bellotti.
Reservations.
So ordered. Further discussion on 1783, if not 1784. Representative Perrick.
In support.
Please proceed.
This bill will help local family-owned businesses, and it will basically be a measure that can help prevent locally owned businesses from having to sell their businesses potentially out to the mainland. So I'm in support of this.
Representative Kobayashi.
Mr. Speaker, in opposition.
Please proceed.
I didn't vote no in committee, but after some thinking, I've decided that this bill puts you on the side of either for the people or for the very wealthy. And by very wealthy, I mean couples that have an estate exceeding $11 million, which are very, very few. The main reason I am voting no is that while we will give some very wealthy people a tax break, we will not get anything in return. Supposedly, this money that would go to the tax break could be used to reinvest in the business, or it could be used to fatten the pockets of those involved. If it's reinvested in the business, it could result in more tax revenue, or it could not, because not every business expansion succeeds. And hence, jobs would not be created, income tax would not be created. Nor do we have any assurance that these businesses would be more generous in their donations to nonprofits. So nowhere along the line are we guaranteed that we will get, that is the state of Hawaii government or the community, will get anything in return. In addition, of course, if this goes through, it would increase the taxes of everyone else, the so-called average people who do not qualify for $11 million estate tax. The other problem with this bill is that it doesn't solve the federal problem. We have a federal estate tax, which is essentially double in size that of our state income tax. So these businesses who are wanting to solve their estate tax problem on the backs of state taxpayers will still have the same problem with the federal government and be in jeopardy of having to do some drastic moves in estate planning or buying more life insurance to protect their current assets as they get transferred from one generation to the other. So for these reasons, I've decided that I'm a no on this and urge that people consider, are you for the people or are you for those who qualify, those couples who qualify for an $11 million estate tax? Thank you.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, I'm in strong support, and admitting that this body is always weak in macro and microeconomics, because what the good speaker from Diamond Head forgot to mention is that this is all about the L&L drive-in. It's about Zippies. It's about one of the testifiers in the Finance Committee from Surfco Pacific. Do you want these businesses to be passed on to their kids, or you want them to have the big box mainland guys to take over? This class warfare stuff just doesn't make sense. The big rich. I asked the actual owner of Surfco Pacific, I said, how many employees you got? He says, I hire 1,000 people. I mean, that feeds a lot of people, puts a roof over the head of a lot of people. So do we wonder why we're 50th in the nation for unfriendliness to business? Is because of people who've misinterpreted what this is to perpetuate the L&L, the Zippies, and the Surfco Pacific. So their families, we talk about, oh, we want people to stay in Hawaii. Well, let's keep our businesses in Hawaii because they're going to be bought out or they're going to be taken over by mainland firms. It's common sense. Don't say who's for the people. Who's for the people who work for our businesses, because our businesses need help also, not just people who are not business people. And this class warfare stuff is just a lot of hate mongering. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Capello.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
Please proceed.
This bill is a tax cut for the extreme wealthy in our state. It's not about small businesses, because if it really was about small businesses, we would have been supporting them more. This is about a huge tax cut for literally the 0.2% of Hawaii's wealthiest families. An estate tax is intended in part to help avoid extreme concentrations of wealth sustained across generations. That's what an estate tax is. We would be losing $43 million from our state budget if this is allowed to pass. So let's talk about what we could pass if we didn't remove $43 million from our budget, especially after we've told department heads that they should be preparing for potential cuts to their own budgets. These are potential cuts to the Department of Education, potential cuts to families in extreme need. So this is what we could fund if we don't cut this $43 million. We could ensure that every public school student has access to breakfast and lunch. That's $23 million. We could have prevented 2,500 evictions each year with a rent relief and mediation program. That's $13 million. We could have provided $325 per child for a child tax credit. For $176,000 for 176,000 children in low-income families, that would have been $42 million. There are thousands of things that we could have spent this money on and that we can spend this money on if we don't allow the extreme wealthy to once again get another tax break. Thank you.
Representative Amato.
No vote.
So ordered. Further discussion? Representative Poi Poi.
No.
So ordered. Representative Belani.
In opposition, and I'll reserve comments for third reading. Thank you.
So ordered. Representative Keela.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Representative Tam.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Garrett.
Thank you. Same request, please.
Reservation. So ordered. Representative Prusso.
In strong opposition, and I'd like to have the words of the representative from Kapahulu and the vice chair of higher education entered into the journal as if they were my own.
So ordered. Representative Sayama.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Lowen.
No vote, please.
So ordered. Representative Gates.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Gannon.
No vote.
So ordered. Representative Alcos.
No vote.
So ordered. Further discussion? Representative Evsland.
In opposition with brief comment, please.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I largely agree with the words of the representative from Hawaii Kai and the need to support small businesses in Hawaii. My concern with this bill is that this goes further than the House bill, which would have done exactly that, and provides a broad avenue to get out of the estate tax for wealthy families. And so I will continue to support the House bill if that comes out of conference, but I won't be supporting this bill. Thank you.
Representative Hussey Burdick.
No vote.
So ordered. Representative Martin.
No vote, please.
So ordered. Representative Chun.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Ayu.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Alcos.
Mistake, I wanted to go up on that. So.
You want a yes
yeah.
vote?
Yes vote.
Okay. So ordered. Representative Cochran.
No, please.
So ordered. Okay, further discussion? If not, we'll be taking the vote. It's a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt Standing Committee Report numbers 1785-24 through 1815-24 as listed on pages 4 through 11, and that the accompanying Senate bills pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Okay, discussion members, SCR 1785, 1786, 1787. Representative Perrick.
In support.
Please proceed.
This measure is in support of veterans who have served in Afghanistan and in Iraq. My brother Chaz Perrick has served in Afghanistan, so I thank him for his service, and I thank all those in Hawaii who have served in Afghanistan in the pursuit of freedom.
Okay, next page, 1788, 1789, 1790, Representative Ward.
Speaker, I rise with reservations on 1790 with a brief comment,
Please proceed.
Again, if I was a neighbor island, I would say this is the best thing since sliced bread. We've got to have helicopter support for our sick and emergencies. The only problem with this, instead of having it in the private sector, which who knows how to run a private business, this is going to be run by the Department of Health Airlines. Mr. Speaker, government running an airline is, if it's a last resort, fine. If it's not from the private sector, I think we're making a big mistake. And I don't want to cite what's going on with the $12 billion skyline and how we can't even run a 20-year rail. I know that's not relevant, but it's the government that is doing that. That's the problem. Hart is the one who's running the rail. You don't agree with that?
Please confine your remarks, Representative Ward, to this measure.
My remarks are, if you're government, you're not entrepreneurial, you're kind of bureaucratic, and you don't know how to run an airline. Airlines are having enough problem in the private sector as it is. We know what Alaska Airline had happen. We know what Boeing is going through. We know there's been problems at our airport, making it look other than a third world country. Government is not the best people to run market-oriented issues. It's better that we have, look, I'm for the bill. I only said reservation. I'm for the bill. We got to have support for our injured that are not within a vicinity of an ambulance getting there. But to have the airline run by the government, I think we're running into a big bottomless pit, quite frankly. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion? Representative Todd.
Hi, in support.
Please proceed.
This is my brother's bill, so I figure I should stand up on this one. I just wanted to clarify, and I know I say that a lot, but this would not be an airline. This is to provide emergency aeromedical services. Basically, if you have a massive heart attack or massive trauma and the neighbor islands do not have the hospitals or emergency rooms that can adequately care for you, and you need transport to Honolulu, where the best medical centers are, then this would help to fund that. It would be cooperation between the counties who would administer this and the state who would help subsidize. The counties, particularly Hawaii County, have done an excellent job in trying to procure state-of-the-art aeromedical services. We had a private anonymous donor on the West Hawaii side who gave millions of dollars to this purpose, and there is going to be a new helicopter, state-of-the-art, delivered to the Big Island sometime in 2025. The problem is to adequately provide that service, to be on call 24/7 to deal with medical emergencies, you need to be able to fund that. And the counties are not capable of doing that on their own. If they receive assistance from the state, it would allow them to expand those services to literally save lives. And we would now have a fleet set up that could respond to major emergencies within the state, like a major wildfire. Right now, the counties themselves do not have the capacity to fight large fires of that nature, and we cannot rely on other states. If you have a major fire on the West Coast, other states respond. We don't have that luxury here. So this would go a long way. I understand that this year is difficult financially, but fortunately, that need is not immediate. This would be growing over time as these helicopters get delivered and purchased. It'll literally save lives. I personally know multiple people in my life who have passed away or been severely harmed because they cannot receive those adequate services, even in Hilo, where we have an excellent hospital. And Hilo is fortunate in that capacity relative to much of the other parts of the state. If you have a major heart attack, literally every minute before you receive those life-saving services, your heart gets worse and can get permanently damaged. Without being able to respond, it will really lead to negative outcomes. But also, because you're really relying on the current system, which may have one helicopter that's capable of taking you, if that helicopter is already transporting someone, you're there waiting for the next helicopter. Oftentimes that wait can be more than 12 hours, at which point you've passed away or you have lifelong complications. And then beyond that, I would just note that there has been testimony received from city and county, and they would like this to potentially be expanded to rural Oahu, where they have some of these same challenges with traffic concerns, particularly if there's an accident on the highway where ambulances can take a very long time to respond and get back into Honolulu. So I would like to see this expanded over time, particularly where it was noted on the North Shore. Thank you.
Professor Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
And I would like the words of the Chair from Transportation inserted as if they were my own.
So ordered. Professor Kahaloa.
Also in support.
Please proceed.
I would like to also adopt the words of the Chair of Transportation with one clarification. The introducer of the bill is not my brother, but he is the fire chief of our county, and I think that's really important. And what we experienced on our island is the need for this donation of the helicopter that can travel between islands. We had a community leader who had a health incident at a conference for healthcare in front of nearly 400 people, and it took him almost 7 or 8 hours to get medevac to Kapi'olani, and we know if you have a stroke or a heart attack, Every minute, every hour counts. Thank you.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, just to clarify, in support, the fire chief is not my brother also. But I also want to make one more point. The cost for Neighbor Island patients to come to a hospital here in Oahu is humongous. Many of us can't afford to pay it. Many of the people who are the ones that need it are Medicaid or perhaps don't even have coverage. So they're stuck with $100,000 bill. It could go that high. So I think this is a very important conversation that is going to be good for all neighbor islands. Thank you.
Okay, so further discussion, Representative Ilagan.
Mr. Speaker, I stand in support.
Please proceed.
I would also like to share a story in my district that a young girl fell out of Makuu Cliff. And if this helicopter was available, her life would have been saved. This happened a month ago. And just to give you an understanding of the need for this helicopter, if there was any way to launch a boat to save that girl's life, they would have to go to Hilo to launch the boat. The Puhiki boat ramp is not available to launch the boats. You could also launch the boat on Kau. The size and the distance, because Big Island is 4,028 square miles, just from Hilo to Kau is the same shoreline of Oahu. So imagine not even being able to access and save that girl's life because we don't have the needed equipment and infrastructure to do so. So I stand here in support, and I wish that we could have saved that girl's life and having that equipment there and now. Thank you.
Representative Evslin.
In support with brief comment.
Please proceed.
I wouldn't be here today if not for the services of emergency medical transport like this. If the helicopter that transported me in 2010 were not available that day, I would not have had any way out of a remote port of the island of Molokai. So I am in strong support. Thank you.
Okay, we're on 1791. Discussion. Next page, 1792, 1793, 1794, 1795. Next page, 1796. Representative Hussey Bordick.
Sorry, at the appropriate time, can we go back to 1794?
Please proceed on 1794.
Reservations.
So ordered. Okay, we're back on 1796. Representative Perrick.
Mr. Speaker, at the appropriate time, can we go back to 1792?
Yes, please proceed on 1792.
Thank you. This measure would basically
Support or opposition?
In opposition.
Please proceed.
This measure would take $750 of our tax money and go to the purchaser of a bicycle, electric bike. So we're using state tax dollar money to fund the purchases of bicycles. I think if people want to buy a bike, that's their choice. If people want to buy a car, that's their choice. We shouldn't be incentivizing people to buy bicycles. Let the private sector govern themselves by them purchasing what they want. I'm not letting people that are working hard and having sometimes 30% of their income taken away from them, put in the state budget, and then reallocated to people who are buying bicycles. So I'm voting no.
Okay, we're back on 1796, 1797, 1798, 1799. Next page, 1800, 1801, 1802, 1803. Next page, 1804, 1805, 1806, 1807. Representative Perrick.
In support for 1804.
1804. Please proceed on 1804.
Thank you. This bill, in short summary, exempts certain medical services and dental services from the general excise tax. Many of my constituents have asked for this bill, and I'm grateful that our House is hearing it and moving it forward.
So further discussion on Representative Quillen.
With reservations, Mr. Speaker, what about those people with no teeth?
Okay, so further discussion on 1804. If not, 1806. Representative Garcia.
1805, Mr. Speaker.
Please proceed.
With reservations.
So ordered. Okay, we're back on 1806, 1807. Next page, 1808, 1809. Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Speaker. That's a no vote.
Okay, so ordered. On 1809.
Sorry, are we on 1808 or 1809?
We're on 1809. Discussion 1809. Representative Cochran.
My no vote was on 08. Did I miss it? I thought I heard you say 1808.
Okay, so we'll go back to 1808. Representative Cochran.
Yeah, opposition to 1808.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Representative Hussey Burdick.
Reservations, please.
So ordered. Further discussion on 1808. Representative Poi Poi.
Reservations on 1808 and 1809.
Okay, so ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick.
My mistake. No vote. Sorry about that.
There's a no vote on 1808. So ordered. Representative Amato.
Reservations.
So ordered. Further discussion on 1808. If not, 1809. Representative Amato.
No vote.
Okay, so ordered. Further discussion, members. Representative Kila.
1809, Mr. Speaker. Reservations, brief comment.
Please proceed.
In the Finance Committee, there was a question posed to the PUC to ask them to further explore the impact that this could potentially have on ratepayers, and they did confirm that this could have a concerned impact to ratepayers. So until the discussion is finalized to get a greater perspective of the impact, I will be voting on reservations.
Representative Lowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
Geothermal, compared to other firm resources, is one of the cheaper, if not the cheapest, actually at this point, firm resource that we have on the grid. So.
We're at 1809.
Oh, okay, sorry. Please, I'll save my comments for the next bill.
Okay, Representative Garcia.
With reservations.
So ordered. Okay, we're on 1810. Representative Lowen.
In support, comments in the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion, Representative Poi Poi.
Reservations.
So ordered. Representative Hussey Burdick.
Same request.
So ordered. Representative Onishi.
Yes, with reservations and short comment.
Please proceed.
So this bill calls for the exploration of geothermal resources throughout the state. As we know, the development of geothermal, especially on the island of Hawaii, has been met with opposition and concern by many in the district that geothermal resources are currently being utilized. I think this bill puts the cart before the horse, because we don't know where communities would be willing to accept geothermal development. This bill asks that both be done simultaneously. I think geothermal exploration takes millions and millions of dollars to figure out whether or not those geothermal resources would be adequate in order to be productive. I would rather see this bill be changed into a bill that would explore whether or not communities in Hawaii would be accepting of geothermal development within their community before we start spending millions of dollars on exploration. Thank you, Speaker.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, in support.
Please proceed.
Speaker, I would make very clear that the ratepayers are so much opposed to being the highest paid electricity in the nation. 42, 45 cents per kilowatt hour. That is the bigger concern. Is this going to give us the least expensive way of doing it? And we know from the Big Island that it is, and it can become cheaper. Last night I had a beer summit. The chair of the Public Utilities Commission, Mr. Ascension, was there. He said, we've got to get a better grid, but we also have to think of better ways of wheeling, et cetera, to be able to put the price of electricity down. He knows it's expensive, but he also knows there are different ways that we can do this, and this is one of the ways, one of the options. It doesn't say that it's going to be in your community. I said, is there any geothermal in Hawaii? He said, we don't know yet. But I think we've learned enough to do it properly from what we've done on the Big Island. We know that that's probably one of the least expensive kilowatt hours of electricity. And people are, I mean, just in the last couple of years, the rates have gone sky high. And now we've just passed a bill that says there's going to be another 5% surcharge, which probably is correct because Maui can't absorb all the same thing. And I knew there were a lot of reservations. But somebody's got to pay for what happened on Maui. So the point is, Mr. Speaker, we have to seek ways to lower the cost of electricity. This is one of the ways to do it, and I think this is a way to pursue it. It doesn't say it's going to happen, but it says let's do the explorations and see if it's feasible. Thank you.
Representative Lowen, second time.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Speaker. In a historic first, I agree with almost everything the representative from Hawaii Kai said. And I would just say, as we move forward adopting renewable energy, and there's still a lot more space on the grid to, adopt more of those variable renewable resources, but there will be a need for firm resources. And the things that we can count as renewable, biodiesel, biofuel, biomass, potentially LNG, which we don't use here at all now, but could be considered, are one, not great replacements for fossil fuel because they still have relatively high carbon footprints, and two, they're not cheaper. So what we really should be doing as we move forward is really double down on trying to figure out where we can do more geothermal and use our local resource. And the other advantage of that is that it is a local resource. All those other things require imports, and even if we expand production of biofuels in state, it's still going to always be a drop in the bucket. There will never be enough that we could be able to produce here with the land that we have and not having an economy of scale that would make it affordable or enough to cover the need. So we'll still be relying on imports. And there is a huge need to make sure that we okay these projects with communities, but it's really a chicken and an egg situation. I think both need to move forward at the same time. And you need to figure out where the resources exist, and you need to talk to the community. So I don't think you can really pick which one should happen first. That will just slow everything down, and we've already been way too slow, in my opinion, on moving forward on this. And Mr. Speaker, sorry, I got a little mixed up, but at the appropriate time, can I also request written comments on Stancom Report 1809?
Okay, so ordered on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Representative Onishi, second speech.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Second time. I agree that geothermal is potentially a game changer for the state of Hawaii in terms of providing the least cost renewable energy. But even if they found geothermal resources that could be developed in Hawaii Kai, I would be very hesitant to assume that the people in Hawaii Kai would be willing to have a geothermal plant built in the middle of their district. Thank you.
Okay, further discussion? If not, 1811. Next page, 1812, 1813. Representative Garcia.
In opposition?
Please proceed.
This bill, Senate Bill 2240, requires the Office of Elections to file an application with the Electronic Registration Information Center, also known as ERIC Incorporated. This is a private nonprofit organization. Currently, there are a bunch of states who are working with ERIC to clean up their voter rolls, but as of right now, there are a lot of states, more than 11 right now, which are withdrawing their association with ERIC due to security concerns. Mr. Speaker, the Office of Elections is funded and paid for by we the people, and we entrust the director, the Office of Elections, to conduct elections and as a way of protecting democracy, if you will. But this bill gives the power of the Office of Elections to a third-party nonprofit organization, which raises so many red flags with security concerns, etc. However, it should be noted clearly that the Election Commission themselves voted against this bill. They are in opposition to this bill, and the director of the Office of Elections, Scott Nagel, says that though they hire and fire him, they advise him, he disagrees, they're against it, he's supporting it. I would trust the Election Commission and their opposition to this bill, so no vote.
Representative Tarnas.
In support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I think this is a very useful bill because this Electronic Registration Information Center is a service that is offered to states to ensure that people are not registered to vote in more than one state. So it does help to improve election integrity. I work with election officials through National Conference of State Legislatures in their elections special committee. And I have learned that election officials in red states and blue states have said that ERIC is a very useful tool. It has been others that are not election officials that have pressured some of the officials in certain states to pull out of ERIC. And I think, unfortunately, they use information that is not accurate. And so I try to base my recommendations on good evidence and best practices in other states. And I think ERIC is a best practice in other states. It has gotten politicized, but I think if we look at the facts, it is useful, the security is good, and it prevents people from being registered in more than one state, which we don't want to have. So I would urge members to support this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Ward.
Speaker, in opposition.
Please proceed.
Why do we have an election commission? Hey, to figure out what's best to do for the elections. As the gentleman from Kapolei noted, the election commission says, hey, this is not worth the $10,000+ per year. I mean, this is not a freebie. This is a for-profit. I think I would correct it. It's an INC, which generally means for-profit, not a non-profit. And the value added is on a downside. A lot of people in the Finance Committee hearing said, you mean you're going to give my age, Social Security, maybe birth date? And the testifier said, yes. And they said, oh my God, we don't even know when we go for re-election, when people sign our papers, they don't even have to put their Social Security number except maybe the last two numbers, and they only put their they only put the year that they were born. So we're going to turn this over to a national group, and they said the only value is when somebody moves out of the state, they'll say that you can't move. But the biggest problem is people who die and they're still on the list, which we have control over locally. So the money that we need to do that better, i.e. clean the rolls, is not joining some national organization, of which, again, as earlier noted, 11 states says, hey, this is not worth the bang for the buck. So, Mr. Speaker, for all those reasons, why do we want to spend more money when there's no value added? That is absurd. Thank you.
Representative Cochran.
Thank you, Speaker, and I'm also a no vote. I want to reiterate that the commission, the Elections Commission Board did unanimously vote no for it, and it was only Director Nago that is in favor. And so I'm clearly a no vote. Thank you so much.
Further discussion, members? If not, 1814. Representative Burdick.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. At the appropriate time, can we go back to 1812?
Please proceed on 1812.
Reservations, brief comment.
Please proceed.
Some of my constituents might be surprised to see an environmentalist express concerns about a bill to expedite the transition to renewable energy. However, our current definition of renewable is actually not very sustainable. It includes practices and procedures that actually expend more greenhouse gases than traditional fossil fuels. So I would love to see the definition of renewable energy cleaned up to include some kind of sustainability element. And until then, I just have reservations about expediting things that could put us in a worse situation in terms of climate change than we already are. Thank you.
Representative Garcia.
On 1812 with reservations.
So ordered. Further discussion, 1812. If not, we're back on 1814. Discussion. 1815. Any discussion? Representative Burdick.
I have reservations about this bill and a brief comment.
Please proceed.
This bill just doesn't sit right with me. I debated for a long time whether I should vote no or with reservations, especially since there are some Native Hawaiian leaders who I deeply respect in strong support of this bill, and I really want to honor their wishes. But I feel like we're being presented with a false dichotomy here, as if the only two choices are this buyout or to let them die on the wait list. I'm ashamed that our leaders have utterly failed over the last 60 years to provide enough homesteads to keep Hawaiians in Hawaii. I'm ashamed that this is the choice that we're left with. I'm voting with reservations for now to keep this conversation going, but I think we all know that Hawaiians deserve better than this.
Okay, further discussion, members? If not, we'll be taking Representative Poi Poi.
Reservations.
So ordered. Okay, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 6, STANCOM report number 1794-24, SB number 2974, SD2HD1, Rep. Capella votes no. On page 9, STANCOM report number 1804-24, SB number 1035, SD2HD1, Rep. IU votes no. STANCOM report number 1805-24, SB number 2605, SD2HD1, Rep. IU and Kong vote no. On page 10, STANCOM report number 1808-24, SB number 1170, SD2HD2, the following vote no. Cochran, Hussey Burdick, Capella, Peruso. For STANCOM report number 1809-24, SB number 2505, SD2HD1, Rep. Amato votes no. STANCOM report number 1810-24, SB number 2518, SD2HD1, following vote no. Capella, Peruso. On page 11, STANCOM report number 1812-24, SB number 3010, SD1HD1, Rep. Cochran votes no. STANCOM report number 1813-24, SB number 2240, SD2HD1, the following vote no. IU, Gates, Keela, Kong. And on STANCOM report number 1815-24, SB number 2640, SD2HD1, Rep. Capella votes no.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 5, SCR 1790, SB 3126, SD1, HD1, Rep. Pirrick votes no. Page 6, SCR 1792-24, SB 3021, SD2, HD1, Pirrick votes no. Page 7, SCR 1797-24, SB 3091, SD2, HD1, Pirrick votes no. On page 11, SCR 1813-24, SB 2240, SD2, HD1, Reps. Alcos, Garcia, Matsumoto, Pirrick, and Ward vote no. SCR 1815-24, SB 2640, SD2, HD1, Reps. Garcia and Pirrick vote no.
All right, members, have all votes been cast? Representative Cochran.
Speaker, I believe there's a mistake, and perhaps it's my fault, what I wrote on my green slip. That's in reference to page 11, SCR 1812-24. Is that casted as a no?
You're recorded as a no vote, Representative Cochran.
And it should be SCR 1813 and not 12.
Okay, we'll make
sorry,
that
I must have wrote the wrong number. I'm sorry.
On 1813, it's a no vote for
Yes.
Rep. Cochran?
No. Correct.
Okay, Representative Capella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On SCR 1815, can I change my no vote to a reservation?
So ordered. Members, any other votes? Okay, if not, said measures past third reading. Members, can we take a brief recess subject to the call of the chair? Recess. Will the House come to order? Representative Nakamura.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Senate bills listed on page 12 pass third reading.
Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Any discussion, members? Beginning with SB 2706 on page 12. SB 2347. SB 24. Representative Ganadin.
Apologies, Mr. Speaker. No on SB 2347.
Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, this has several issues with it. This is a bill that would turn 3 misdemeanors into a felony. This is, in my mind, kind of a throwback to the worst era of the quote-unquote tough on crime, mass incarceration bills from the 80s and 90s that led to a bunch of different issues. We've been moving in the state towards data collection and collaborative approaches towards criminal justice. This bill has none of those data points that we are ordinarily asking for, and I understand that we want to send a strong commitment to the public that we are against habitual violent misdemeanors, but this bill, if passed, would turn many of the trials that are currently held at the district court right across the street on Alakea into trials that are going to be held further down the street at circuit court, turning them into jury trials. I think folks who are on the fence about it should consider whether or not they want to serve on a jury trial for a misdemeanor offense. Ordinarily, these cases are handled very quickly. I think this could lead to a significant backlog of cases at all levels of courts throughout the state of Hawaii. I'm going to be voting no.
Okay, further discussion. Representative Mato.
No vote.
So ordered. Representative Perrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the appropriate time, can we go back to Senate Bill 2706?
Okay, let's finish 2347. Discussion on 2347. Okay, if not, 2706. Representative Perrick.
Thank you. In opposition?
Please proceed.
This bill would create a task force to look into expunging the records of criminals. When I knocked on a door, specifically in Waipahu, in Harborview, a gentleman, in replying to my question, what can I do for you if I get elected, he said, please decrease crime. Do you see that sign right there? He's pointing to some memorial in his front yard. He said a gentleman got shot in his front yard. So imagine us, the representatives, we're creating a task force to expunge the criminal records of individuals, potentially in Waipahu. I don't think it's a measure that my constituents prefer, so I'll be voting no.
Okay, we're back on SB 2487. Any discussion? Representative Tarnas.
In support.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to explain clearly what this bill does, because it was mischaracterized during the second reading, and so I just want to make it very clear. What this bill does is it decriminalizes if the possession of an ounce of cannabis or less. The possession of more than 1 ounce and less than 2 ounces is a petty misdemeanor. Possession of 2 ounces or more is a misdemeanor. We also added something to this bill which we don't currently have in statute, which is to create an offense of smoking marijuana in a public place and adds a significant fine. Because I want to address some of the issues that have come up in the many debates that we've had on this floor about cannabis policy. And so I think this is a very reasonable bill. 27 of the decriminalized and legalization states, they've decriminalized an ounce or more. If you go into a dispensary for medical cannabis right now, on the price list, a standard amount that is sold is 1 ounce. 1 ounce is about 28 grams. The Department of Health just came out with rules for medical cannabis so that dispensaries could sell pre-rolls, which are basically joints of cannabis. And the standard amount in each pre-roll is 1 gram. So out of an ounce, you can produce 28 pre-rolls, 28 joints. A standard carton of cigarettes has 20 cigarettes in it. So less than 2 cartons of cigarettes is what we're talking about here, an ounce. So it's not an unusual amount. it's basically about middle of the road when you look at all the states that have decriminalized, because some of them go up to 3 ounces. But I tried to be very reasonable here, so we're suggesting 1 ounce. So I really urge members to support this. I think it's a reasonable approach, and I appreciate the opportunity to work on this cannabis reform for our House. Thank you.
Representative Kitagawa,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
please proceed.
Before I start, I'd like to define a couple of words from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. The definition of decriminalize is to remove or reduce the criminal classification or status of something. A synonym is one of 2 or more words that have the same or nearly the same meaning. The synonym of decriminalize is to legalize, permit, or approve. This, in my opinion, is another way to legalize marijuana in our state. As I mentioned previously, this sends the wrong message to the public and our youth, saying that pretty much marijuana use is okay up to 1 ounce, and that the fines in this bill are not high enough to deter anyone from marijuana use. I think the public is not fully aware of this bill and the negative implications that it could have. The public has been focused on the legalization of marijuana, and this bill, in my opinion, has been flying under the radar. I don't believe that the public knows that this is essentially a legalization of marijuana bill per the definition that I had just mentioned, and for those reasons, I'm in opposition.
Representative Matayoshi,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In opposition.
please proceed.
I first want to apologize to the chair of JHA. I did mistakenly mischaracterize the bill last time. I had said it was 2 ounces. It is 1 ounce to decriminalize. And I also want to thank him for putting in the $130 fine for smoking marijuana in a public place. I thought that was a really good step and something that really showed that he was listening to the other side as well. I am still, though, in opposition to this bill. For one, it's still federally illegal. I think that a lot of people's opinions may change if the federal government decides to take marijuana off of the scheduled drug. But until that time, I think our state should be comporting with federal law. The original version of this Senate bill would have changed the amount that the decriminalization amount from 3 grams to 15 grams. So that was already a 5-fold increase. This bill would change it to 1 ounce, which is a 9-fold increase. That is quite a large increase in the amount that would be decriminalized, and I think that that's just far too much for our state to bear at this time. The $25 fine might as well not even be a fine. I mean, everyone knows it's a slap on the wrist. If you're carrying around an ounce of weed, you can afford a $25 fine anytime you may get caught. So we're essentially, as the previous speaker said, legalizing possession of marijuana up to the 1 ounce mark. There is mention of a 2 ounce limit in here, though, and that's what had confused me before in my first reading of this bill, which again I apologize for. But the 2 ounce mark is put in there for promotion of a detrimental drug in the 2nd degree. And the reason this is important is because this was not in the Senate version of the bill. This wasn't even in the House version of this bill that did not make it through the House. What this essentially does is, in addition to 1 ounce and below being decriminalized, it lowers the violation for if you're caught with possessing between 2 ounces and 1 ounce from a felony C to a misdemeanor. So there is a practical impact of putting this 2 ounce mark in this bill. If you are caught between 1 and 2 ounces, it is a reduction in the violation of the penalty that you will be facing. So I think that's another significant portion of this bill that people are not necessarily paying attention to at this time. I do want to point out that the effective date, as we have discussed quite a bit in caucus, is upon approval. So I do want to encourage those of you who are sitting on the fence with reservations, honestly, just go up or down, I think, at this point. The time has come. I don't think that we're going to see this bill again. There is a decent chance that the Senate just agrees to our version of the bill and it goes straight up to the governor. I respect everyone's decision and ability to make a decision, but at this point, I think if you're with reservations, you need to decide whether you are for this bill or against it, because I don't think we're going to see this again, and I think it's fair for your communities too to have everyone go either up or down on this bill. So I encourage you all to just pick one. The AG's reached out to me recently about this bill. I did not talk to the prosecutor's office, but I will assume from Steve Alm's previous comments that he is also, and his office is also against this bill. There are a number of large entities in opposition to this bill, so I want to encourage us to at least listen to them. Because this bill was amended in committee, they didn't get a true chance to take a look at the changes. And again, this 2-ounce mark is not in any House version, it's not in the Senate version. I think that portion of it did not get a fair chance to get commented upon by the various entities that might have been interested as well. The last point I want to make is that medical marijuana is already legal, and we all know that. It's been that way for a while. Everyone who needs marijuana for a medical health reason already has it. What we're dealing with in this bill is we're decriminalizing marijuana from 1 ounce and below, and really all we're targeting with this bill are people who want to smoke cannabis for recreation, for fun. We're not targeting those people who need it for some kind of medical condition. Those are a very sympathetic group that I actually agree with. I don't think that we should be passing this law to allow people who just want it for recreation to be decriminalized. Thank you.
Representative Gates.
Mr. Speaker, in strong support.
Please proceed.
May I adopt the words of the JHA chair as if they were my own?
So ordered.
With the comment, I think our communities have been asking us to address this long-standing issue. I think this bill is a step in the right direction to do that. One of the biggest concerns we hear from residents and the fear that is being spread by many in the opposition is that cannabis will be used everywhere, anywhere. You'll be getting clouds blown in your face and, you know, exaggerating what actually will happen if legalization were to take place. This bill will prevent that fear from ever materializing, because having regulations on the books to go after people using cannabis in public is something that we don't have. And so with this bill, we'll be able to go after folks that decide to use cannabis recklessly in our community. Additionally, funding will be allocated to our police resources. And speaking with our police resources, they have blatantly said they don't go after cannabis offenses because it's such a low-level offense in their minds. What they're really going after, Mr. Speaker, is the meth epidemic that is currently taking place, that are putting people on our beaches, or the prescription drug crisis that our entire nation faces right now, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, we know that fentanyl is also on the rise. And so with additional funding, as well as relaxing on going after cannabis, these law enforcement folks can really do their job and make our community safer by going after these more hardcore drugs. And as we know, cannabis is also a medical plant. As your Chair of Agriculture and Food Systems, that's what we look at it as. And to deny our communities and to even criminalize them reverts us back to the ways of old. And I think that we have to create the future for Hawaii that we want to see. And I don't think any of us want to see members of our families or community being arrested and having records based on having cannabis and possession of it. I do appreciate the work that's being done to, again, address the nuisance being brought up. And I think that this bill is better than sitting on our hands and turning a blind eye to what's actually occurring in our community. I'll leave it off on the fact that we have to go back to the origins of why cannabis was prohibited in the first place. And it was very racist policies that I think we can no longer endorse. And I urge our colleagues to follow us as we create that path forward to right the wrongs and to take a stance against criminalizing a plant. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Ward.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise in opposition.
Please proceed.
I think what we have here, Mr. Speaker, is de facto recreational legalization. Why do I say de facto means in actual, but not legally in practice? It means it's actually the case as it is. Two reasons for that. Number one, we're allowing 9 times the amount, 3 grams to 1 ounce. That's 9 times. For the fine from $130 to $25, that's 6 times a decrease. So in effect, hey, look, it's no big deal. It's cheaper than a parking ticket. This is not mine, but I want to show you the cheapest parking ticket in the city and county of Honolulu is $35, meaning you can get a ticket for smoking marijuana. It's only $25 under this bill, Mr. Speaker. Have we become that lopsided that smoking marijuana is different than having offenses with your car? I think we've reached an extreme absurdity. If it's de facto already legal, why do we want to do it more? I think maybe it's an end run by those who want to do the legalization. We'll just do it incrementally with bills like this. But I will note one other factor, and it's never mentioned except for one time by the gentleman from Diamond Head. We were mentioned the package or the carton of cigarettes or the package of cigarettes. One thing that we don't know, for those who are promoting marijuana, marijuana smoke has 20 times the carcinogenic content of cigarettes. All of this promotion of marijuana is promoting cancer, is promoting a lot of toxication into the lungs of our young people. Mr. Speaker, for those reasons, we're giving a legalization of recreational marijuana on a de facto basis by making it so cheap and so easily to be not disciplined that we've got legalization with this bill. For those reasons, Mr. Speaker, I hope everybody voted against legalization will do so. And lastly, I'd like the comments from the Vice Chair of Finance and the gentleman from Kaneohe put into the journal as my own.
So ordered. Representative Ward, don't forget to pay your parking ticket.
As I try to note, this is not mine. It's a visual aid, which I know legally you don't allow these on the floor, but I thought this is small enough to get away with.
Representative Quillen.
Just narrowly avoided the point of order on that one. With reservations, if I am allowed to do so, in fact. Mr. Speaker, there has been a lot of fear-mongering around this issue. And I really want to push back on some of the claims that have been made in the public and on the floor of this chamber. So many people have said, if we legalize marijuana or if we decriminalize, that the Japanese will stop coming, that we'll lose out on huge sections of our economy, that billions of dollars will just float away into the ether. Mr. Speaker, that is not the case. The Japanese did not stop going to New York. They did not stop going to California. They have not stopped going to any locations where they've legalized cannabis. However, there is a kernel of truth amongst the fear-mongering. It is quite possible that if we don't pay special attention to Waikiki as we embark on this path of legalization, that we could lose some tour groups. We could lose some school groups where they might say, hey, there's too much smoke, there's too much public smoking. And that's the component that I'm really worried about. So a huge mahalo to the chair of the Judiciary Committee for inserting that fine on public smoking. Actually, I think it should be even higher. I think it should be $500. And let's send a very strong message, not just to the people of Hawaii, but also to our treasured travel partners in Japan, that we take this issue very, very seriously, and we will not allow the public smoking of marijuana, of cannabis, in Hawaii.
Representative Alcos.
Oppose.
Please proceed.
I lost my mom about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. She had a lot of lung issues due to smoking cigarette. My dad, 4 years before that, still smoking cigarette. I asked them, why did you guys take up smoking? They said that, my mom said she was stressed, or a lot of people that taking up smoking, they just wanted to try it. And basically, it's an addiction that they got into, and they get a hard time letting it go. I lost my parents, they was kind of young, and due to smoking. My son started smoking marijuana, afraid that he might lose some time in his life to spend with his kids down the line. Vaping. A lot of people is smoking and vaping. It's going to short our life term from maybe our life term, maybe if, like, say, it's 75, now it's going to bring them down 10 years. Not only that, the addiction and the health problems that they have in medical is much more money we spend in their medical bill trying to save our kids or our families, our dads, than the investments that we're going to be collecting to help to pay for on road or help to collect tax in this certain reasons. But more money we're going to be spending out at the end, but in the front we can probably save some money. But at the end, if they get addiction to it, we're losing our families, we're breaking that apart. It's going to cost us more money. This money is just like you taking your money out, burning them, and it's not an investment. It's not something that it's going to help quality of life into your family, unless it's a medical situation. I could take that money and buy my kid a football shoes or put more food on the table as we're struggling today. But we decide, just because they wanted to try it and they get hard time getting off of it, and they want that feeling that they're feeling, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cigarettes, whether it's marijuana. This is a drug that does not help our society to move forward. But what we're thinking of is, well, let's collect the tax. It's going to make us money and we're going to pay more bills. That's the wrong way of thinking, and I think this is wrong, and I strongly oppose against that. Thank you.
Representative Takayama.
Mr. Speaker, I support this bill.
Please proceed.
Because I believe that people who choose to use marijuana in the privacy of their own homes should not be subject to heavy fines or even incarceration. Under this bill, it will still be illegal to possess large quantities of cannabis. It will still be illegal to sell marijuana, and it will now be illegal to smoke marijuana in a public place. I believe that this bill is not a perfect bill, and so I understand members may vote against it. But I do believe it's a fair bill, and for that reason, I stand in support. Thank you.
Representative
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Kobayashi.
I rise in opposition.
Please proceed.
I support decriminalization, but decriminalization should be at a point as low as possible, not necessarily 9 times the current decriminalization maximum. Number 2, I think we should have further discussion about the penalties for possession of marijuana above the decriminalization level. Right now, this bill deals with 1 ounce, up to 2 ounces, up to less than 2 ounces, and 2 ounces and above. I think that's where we need to discuss this further and see what penalties would apply. I think that petty misdemeanors and misdemeanors for all of these are too low. I would remind everyone that marijuana is still not a harmless substance. It is a very powerful and potentially dangerous drug. Thank you.
Representative Perrick.
Thank you. In opposition?
Please proceed.
I'd like to have the words of both of the Kaneohe representatives adopted as my own, and then with that being the preface, I continue.
So ordered.
I have a family member who I love very dear, and he's experienced several events in life that has led him to drink alcohol to the abusive level, that led him to smoking cigarettes, that led him to practice, recreational marijuana, and it continues further. It hasn't helped him, it's only hurt him, and it grieves my heart to witness someone who I love so much experience that kind of situation. I think all of us love our constituents. We think about them hopefully daily, and knowing that I've got 30,000 people that I get to serve, I don't want any of them to experience the same heartaches that this family member of I have experienced. So in referencing the Countywide Representative No Webster Dictionary definition that this bill basically legalizes, not decriminalizes, recreational marijuana, I vote no.
Further discussion, members? If not, we'll be taking Representative Matsuyoshi, second speech.
Yeah, thank you. Still in opposition.
Please proceed.
I just wanted to bring up that this bill, when we had the recreational marijuana bill before us, it had a lot of thoughtful provisions for that are not present in this bill. It had a lot of thoughtful provisions for prevention, for law enforcement. Those are not present in this bill. And I was granted in opposition to the previous bill as well, but this bill, by legalizing or by attempting to decriminalize marijuana for up to 1 ounce, is basically inviting all of those ills with none of the fixes. There are no more resources for police, there are no prevention programs, there are no social equity programs, none of that. And it confuses me because by putting all of those programs into the recreational marijuana bill, which I appreciate, don't get me wrong, but by putting those into the recreational marijuana bill, we were essentially agreeing together, both sides were agreeing that there were problems that needed to be solved if we were going to legalize recreational marijuana. Everyone agrees that those were, well, not everybody, but most of us agreed that those were needed steps to take if we were going to legalize marijuana recreationally. Yet here we are trying to essentially legalize marijuana recreationally up to 1 ounce without any of those safeguards in place. And that's another reason why I'm strongly in opposition to this bill. Thank you.
Representative Mizuno.
With reservations.
So ordered. Representative Gates, second speech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to remind our body that alcohol is still the #1 gateway to other harmful drugs, as well as tobacco. And we know that cannabis has, again, medical properties. Alcohol has none. And I feel that the public has been scrutinizing our body because they feel we have been hypocrites, because we have allowed for alcohol to, again, be in our communities on every corner that, again, has no medical benefits or is completely harmful, just being frank to us as humans to consume. And our take on alcohol is that it's okay and that we even allow it in our universities as well. So for those reasons, again, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to be a hypocrite, and that's why I'm in strong support. Thank you.
Further discussion, members? If we're not, we're on SB 2354. Any discussion? If not, we'll take the vote. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, on the measures before us, all majority members vote aye with the exception of the following. For STANCOM report number 1635-24, SB number 2347 HD1, the following vote no. Amato, Ganaden, Hussey Burdick, Capella, Peruso. For STANCOM report number 1636-24, SB number 2487 SD1 HD1, the following vote no. Ayu, Chan, Garrett, Kila, Kitagawa, Kobayashi, Kong, Lamasao, Martinez, Matayoshi, Nishimoto, Onishi, Takenouchi.
Representative Garcia.
On the measures before us, all minority members vote aye with the exception of the following. On page 12, SCR 1634-24, SB 2706, SD1, HD1, Reps Garcia, Perrick, and Ward vote no. SCR 1636-24, SB 2487, SD1, HD1, the minority caucus that's present votes no.
Okay, members, have all votes been cast? If so, said measures passed third reading. We're on item 8. Are there any announcements? If not, we have a couple of motions. Representative Morikawa for the journal.
Mr. Speaker, I move to keep the journal open until 10:00 p.m. for the purpose of receiving standing committee reports and Senate bills transmitted thereby.
Representative Garcia.
Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. Representative Morikawa.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this House stand in recess until 9:00 a.m. Tuesday, April 9th.
Representative Garcia.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. The motion is carried. The House stands in recess until 9 a.m. Tuesday, April 9. Recess.